Back then, dinner didn't come from a box or a drive-thru. It came from scraps, bones, and whatever Mom could stretch just one more day. These weren't just meals. They were quiet acts of survival. If you've ever tasted sugar on bread or gravy made from nothing, this one's for you. Let's remember how our grandparents truly fed a nation. Number 1. Sugar sandwiches. 2 slices of white bread, a smear of margarine, and a dusting of sugar. That was dessert when money ran dry and love had to get creative. Kids thought it was a treat, licking their fingers as if it came from a bakery. But mothers made them with a knot in their chest, knowing it was all they had left. Some even added cinnamon on Sundays to make it feel special. Years later, many remember them with bittersweet fondness, and some with quiet shame. But one thing's certain, no one went to bed hungry that night. Number 2, creamed chipped beef on toast. It was salty, creamy, and served on stale toast, but for many, it tasted like survival. Soldiers called it SOS. But back home, moms rinsed the dried beef, made a white sauce from flour and milk, and stretched a few scraps into a full plate. It filled you up before chores or school, and no one dared complain. Some kids grew to love it, others swore they'd never eat it again. But every bite carried a memory of cold kitchens, hot pans, and mothers making sure no one left the table still hungry. Number 3. Water pie. It looked like magic, but it was pure necessity. An empty pie crust filled with water, sugar, flour, butter, and a drop of vanilla. Baked just right, it turned into a smooth, custard-like dessert that made kids believe in miracles. Mothers saved sugar rations for birthdays or Sunday dinner, and water pie was how they made those days feel special. No apples, no cream, just grit in the form of sweetness. And no one asked how it was made, because in times like that, a slice of anything warm meant you were still holding on. Number 4. Pinto bean sandwiches. When meat disappeared from the table, beans took its place. Mashed pinto beans from last night's pot, spread cold between 2 slices of homemade bread. Maybe a dash of vinegar, maybe a sliver of onion if you were lucky. Kids carried them to school hoping no one would notice, or trading halves just to taste something different. Mothers packed them with quiet resolve, knowing it wasn't enough, but it was something. And years later, those same kids would remember the taste, not with shame, but with pride, because those sandwiches meant someone still cared. Number 5. Biscuits and Gravy. At 5 in the morning, while the house was still cold and dark, mothers rolled out biscuits with fingers that had already milked cows and stoked the fire. The gravy came from bacon grease and a spoonful of flour seasoned heavy with black pepper to make up for the lack of meat. Sometimes there were only crumbs of sausage, but that didn't matter. The smell filled the kitchen, and so did the warmth. It was fuel for men heading to fields and children walking to school, wrapped in hand-me-down coats and quiet determination. Number 6. Garbage soup. Nothing went to waste, not wilted greens, not carrot tops, not the cloudy water left from boiling potatoes. All of it went into the pot that sat on the back burner, simmering day after day. They called it garbage soup, but there was no garbage in it, just scraps, bones, peels, and hope. Each night, it tasted a little different depending on what was added. A spoonful of rice, a pinch of salt, maybe a bit of onion. It wasn't pretty, but it was warm. And it fed everyone. In hard times, that pot never went cold. Number 7. Fried Bologna. It sizzled in the pan like something fancy, curling at the edges and bubbling in the center. A single slice of bologna scored with a knife, fried until golden, then laid on white bread with mustard, sometimes a slice of government cheese if the week was kind. To a child, it felt like a diner sandwich. To parents, it was the best they could offer. Meat was expensive, but bologna was a trick of the mind and the stomach. And somehow that crispy, salty circle tasted like Saturday night. Simple, cheap, and unforgettable. Number 8. Tomato gravy. When the garden gave more tomatoes than mouths could eat, mothers made gravy. Chopped fresh or poured from a jar, they simmered them with flour and bacon grease until thick and tangy, ladled over biscuits, rice, or even plain white bread. It turned simple starch into something warm and bright. In summer, the smell filled the kitchen. In winter, canned tomatoes carried the memory. It wasn't a meal, it was a moment when hard times paused and flavor took over. In Appalachian homes, it wasn't just food, it was pride in a jar. Number 9, corn cob jelly. After the kernels were scraped for dinner, the cobs still had something to give. Boiled down with sugar and pectin, they became a golden jelly, sweet, floral, and faintly corn-like. It was Depression-era ingenuity at its finest, turning scraps into something spreadable. Mothers saved sugar stamps just to make a few jars, often for Sunday breakfast, or to give as gifts with biscuits. Most kids never guessed it came from trash, but that's what made it special. In hard times, nothing was wasted, and sometimes the sweetest things came from what others threw away. Number 10, ham bone beans. After Sunday dinner, when the ham was carved down to bone, the real meal began. That bare bone, dropped into a pot with soaked navy beans and onion, simmered all day until the broth turned rich and smoky. Bits of meat clung to the bone, softening into tender shreds. Served with cornbread or over rice, it fed a family for days. Moms called it stretching the feast. Kids just called it dinner. No spice rack, no measurements, just instinct, thrift, and care. And every bowl reminded you, nothing good ever went to waste, not even the bone. Number 11, milk toast. Warm milk poured over toasted bread with a pat of butter melting in the middle. Simple, soft, and oddly comforting. For children recovering from illness or elders with tired teeth, this was the meal that gently said, "You're going to be okay." Sometimes sweetened with sugar, other times seasoned with salt and pepper, it was humble but healing. Nurses recommended it, but mothers perfected it. It wasn't flashy, and it sure wasn't fun, but when your belly was empty or your body was weak, milk toast was a quiet kind of love served by the spoonful. Number 12, mock apple pie. No apples? No problem. Pioneer mothers and Depression-era cooks fooled the senses with crushed Ritz crackers, simmered in sugar syrup, cream of tartar, and lemon essence. Baked in a flaky crust with a sprinkle of cinnamon, it looked and even tasted like real apple pie. Kids never knew the difference, and sometimes neither did guests. It was culinary sleight of hand, born from empty orchards and empty pockets. What mattered wasn't the ingredient, it was the feeling of normalcy, of celebration. Because even in hard times, nobody wanted to face life without a slice of something that felt like home. Number 13, onion sandwiches. 2 slices of bread, 1 thick ring of raw onion, a dash of salt and pepper, maybe a smear of lard or butter if the day was good. That was lunch for coal miners, mill workers, and school children during the leanest years. The sharp bite of onion filled the belly and kept others from stealing your lunch. Some kids sprinkled sugar on top to soften the sting. It was harsh, honest, and unforgettable. Nobody made onion sandwiches for fun, but they made them out of love, out of grit, and out of the stubborn belief that something simple could still be enough. Number 14, potato soup. Cheap, filling, and endlessly adaptable, potato soup was the backbone of many suppers when meat ran out and money ran thin. A few peeled spuds, water, salt, maybe an onion, or a splash of milk if luck held out. Some used bacon grease for flavor, others foraged wild onions in spring. The broth thickened with starch alone, no cream required. Served steaming in chipped bowls, it fed tired bodies and calmed worried minds. Irish immigrants brought it with them, but every American mother made it her own. It wasn't just soup, it was how families stayed warm when the world felt cold. Number 15, bread pudding. Nothing in the kitchen got thrown out, not even stale bread. torn into cubes, soaked in a mixture of milk, eggs, sugar, and cinnamon, then baked until golden. Bread pudding turned scraps into something close to sacred. Sometimes raisins appeared, sometimes not. Sometimes milk was watered down and eggs stretched with flour. But no one complained. It was warm, sweet, and made the house smell like hope. In hard times, it wasn't dessert. It was proof that Mom could make do with anything. And for many kids, that pan of bread pudding was the closest thing they got to a birthday cake. These meals weren't fancy, but they fed families, built character, and proved that love shows up even when the fridge is empty. If any of these dishes brought back a memory, share it below. And if you believe those days still matter, don't forget to subscribe for more stories that remember.